The way the religious and non-religious interact with one another is something that deeply disturbs me. There is so much condescension embedded within many of these dialogues. As someone who has been on both sides of the spectrum, I consistently find it bewildering just how different these perspectives can be, just how entrenched people can become within their beliefs. I think the way Carl Jung formulated it was supreme. Religion places the emphasis on an imprinter. It wants to understand the intention of the imprinter. There must be an imprinter. That's where you derive some of the most significant philosophical arguments for the existence of God. The watchmaker analogy, for instance. But I also want to point to the condescension that comes from the atheist side of things. The way atheists look down on religious people. I think this arrogance is summed up perfectly in a beautiful metaphorical statement made by the late great Christopher Hitchens.
Said repeatedly that this stuff cannot be taken away from people. It is their favorite toy, and it will remain so as long as we're afraid of death.
Certainly, the scorn held by atheists toward religious folk comes from a place of feeling victimized throughout history. Non-believers have not been treated kindly. Even as a religiosity is becoming more prominent within the United States today, there are still households in which you'll be thrown out of your own house if you disgrace the religion, if you're gay, for instance. That's certainly not going to lend itself to a belief in God. You still have over a dozen Muslim countries that order death to apostates and non-believers. You pair this with all of the nasty things outlined in the Bible and the Quran, the cobbled contradictions galore, you start to realize where atheists are coming from. It's that annoyance, that defiance with religious people for trying to pigeonhole them into a singular belief system that generates condescending attitudes. It inspires the classification of religious people as too stupid to evict themselves of the belief in God in the same way that children past a certain age evict the belief of Santa. That's how a lot of atheists feel toward religious people who insist their way of viewing the world is the right way. You guys are just too stupid to drop the superstitious. You haven't grown out of your childhood beliefs and you're trying to foist it on everyone else. Go play with your toys. As someone who used to be atheist, this is precisely how I felt. To some extent, the same character lives inside me still and is provoked when confronted with the most dogmatic of religious folk. Yet that's not the end of the story. The religious can be just as condescending toward the non-religious, insisting that they simply haven't found God yet. They haven't had a spiritual awakening. You think you don't believe in God, but you're Judeo-Christian to the core. All of these convictions, when espoused without proper hedging, come across as conceited. From the atheist point of view, who are you to tell me what I do or do not believe? What gives you authority over my own belief mechanisms? Ultimately, these are not persuasive ways of speaking to anyone. Speaking to an atheist in this patronizing way certainly isn't going to inspire a belief in God. And in the same breath, I understand from where the religious people are coming. They're tired of religion not being taken seriously by the scientific community. And I'm not talking about simply accepting religion as true, but you would think for something as esteemed as science that they would have a little bit of curiosity as to where religious beliefs come from. How can shared collective experiences be so strong? How can they survive so many generations? For an atheist like myself, why did I start having visions that aligned directly with the Christian symbology when I supposedly didn't believe? Science won't touch it. It treats it as some kind of superstitious irrationality, even though superstitious irrationality is baked into the human species. It's a part of our psychology. Why wouldn't we want to investigate this? One of the missions of this channel is to close that divide between science and religion, to bridge the fissure between the non-religious and the religious. If we are to build a more unified world, a place where people have a better opportunity of seeing eye to eye, or to at least respect others' perspectives, this is the way forward. I can promise you that. Science must come to appreciate and respect religion and religious belief. Religion must come to appreciate and respect science, the scientific method, and scientific skepticism. If we can somehow accomplish this great feat, sky's the limit. Until then, I'll be patiently awaiting.